Now let's turn to the category of public service for our next inductee. Ronald Reagan's biography is well documented in the history books, but his own words in a speech on the occasion of his 1984 visit to Ireland best describes his understanding of his connections to Ireland. To the people of Ballyporeen, County Tipperary, he said, "My great-grandfather left here in a time of stress, seeking to better himself and his family. From what I'm told, we were a poor family, but my ancestors took them with a treasure in an indomitable spirit that was cultivated in the rich soil of his county. And today, I come back to you as a descendant of people who are buried here in paupers' graves. Perhaps this is God's way of reminding us that we must always treat each individual, no matter what his or her station is in life, with dignity and respect." The bond between our two countries runs deep and strong, and I'm proud to be here in recognition and celebration of our ties that bind. My roots in Ballyporeen, County Tipperary, are a little different than millions of other Americans who find their roots in towns and counties all over the Isle of Ahearn. We have a video clip now of the great Ronald Reagan.
This day that is so special to all Americans, but especially to the 30 million of us that take pride in our Irish heritage, I want to thank you for the hospitality that you've again offered me here at the Irish Embassy. Like the seeds of the shamrock, Ireland has scattered its sons and daughters to the four winds. And everywhere they've taken root, they've made a unique contribution to their adopted country. Here in America, the men and women whose patron saint we honor today have made an immeasurable contribution to the development of this nation. Even the White House has not been exempt from Ireland's spell. Many of our presidents trace their roots to Ireland, and I'm proud to trace mine to Ballyporeen in County Tipperary. And our links to Ireland are many and varied. We're grateful for the closeness of our historic heritage, just as we respect the proud independence of today's Ireland, whose troops have worn the blue helmet of the United Nations in so many lands, including service today with the UNIFIL forces in Lebanon. It's an honor and a pleasure for me to be here with you, sharing the spirit and the festivities of St. Patrick's Day. The blessed St. Patrick, we are told, died on this day in the year of our Lord, 461. And leave it to the Irish to be carrying on a wake for 1,500 years. But St. Patrick, as we know, was the historic man of God who, with passion and strength of conviction, converted the people of Ireland to Christianity. I have a deep and abiding respect for the accomplishments of St. Patrick, an individual who was able to turn the head of the entire Irish race. Having done my best these last 6 years, even on the minor issues, to convert the likes of Senator Kennedy and Speaker O'Neill. I can only stand in awe of such a man.
James Burke, and his group from Dixon's here tonight. Where are you? Hey! Welcome to Chicago! Ladies and gentlemen, we are very honored to be in communication with Mrs. Nancy Reagan to advise her of this nomination. She asked that Mr. Rick Ahearn, did I pronounce that correctly? Ahearn, lovely Irish way, come here to accept the nomination. Rick worked for 5 U.S. presidents in varying capacities: Nixon, Ford, Reagan, George H.W. Bush, and George W. Bush. He has held national staff positions in the last 12 presidential campaign cycles and has consulted or managed dozens of campaigns on the congressional, statewide, regional, or national level throughout the U.S. and abroad. Mr. Ahearn served as lead advancement and special assistant to President Reagan during his 2 terms as president. He was at President Reagan's side during the assassination attempt by John Hinckley Jr. on March 30th, 1981. Please welcome Rick Ahearn to the stage.
Thank you, Katie. It's a real privilege to be here and to accept this award, one of many in a long line of Republicans that have been honored in such a way by this great organization. Actually, I am told that this is the first Republican that's been although I'm not sure what Commodore Barry's politics were. But thank you for inviting me here tonight. It is an honor and a privilege representing Mrs. Reagan as we celebrate President Reagan's memory and his legacy. As Katie indicated, I started working with President Reagan during the primary campaign in 1979. And as Katie also mentioned, I was honored to serve as Special Assistant to the President during his terms in office. I worked for him up through and including Inauguration Day in 1989, so it was a 10-year period, and it was a real honor, an important part of my life. It was no secret to those of us who worked closely with the President that he was proud of his Irish heritage and took every opportunity to celebrate it and joke about it, as you've just seen in the clip. Those were St. Patrick's Day lunches at the Irish Ambassador's residence, which he used to attend every year, and I had the privilege of being there as well. One of the stories he loved to tell involved our intelligence services. There was an agent overseas in deep cover, and he happened to be in the west of Ireland in a small town. There was an emergency, and it was necessary to contact him immediately. So they called in another agent, and they said, now you'll go there, and you look him up. His name is Murphy, and your recognition will be to say, "'Tis a fair day, but it'll be lovelier this evening." So he went to Ireland, to the little town, into the pub, elbowed himself up to the bar, ordered a drink, and said to the bartender, "How would I get in touch with Murphy?" Well, the barman says, "Well, that depends. If it's Murphy the farmer you want, it's 2 miles down the road and it's the farm on the left. If it's Murphy the bootmaker you want, he's on the second floor in the building across the street. And by the way, my name is Murphy too." Well, the agent picked up his drink and says, "Well, 'tis a fair day, but it'll be even lovelier this evening." "Oh," the barman says, "it's Murphy the spy you want." Here's 2 streets over. President Reagan took several trips to Ireland during his life, and I had the privilege of organizing his trip as president in 1984. He loved to tell stories of his time there. I remember one story he used to tell about a trip he took when he was governor of California. As he toured the ruins of the cathedral in Castlereagh, where St. Patrick erected the first cross, then Governor Reagan noticed a tomb with the inscription, "Remember me as you pass by. As you are now, so once was I. As I am, you too will be. So be content to follow me." Well, he also noticed, scratched underneath the epitaph, in addition, "To follow you I am content. I wish I knew which way you went." The President and Don Reagan, who coincidentally was my cousin, Reagan's Secretary of Treasury and Chief of Staff, used to trade jokes at the beginning of every meeting. It was just part of our daily routine. They loved to tell stories to each other. They would routinely poke fun at one another about their shared Irish heritage. And of course, Reagan spelled his name R-E-G-A-N, and Reagan was R-E-A-G-A-N. The President used to tell Don that they were of the same clan, that the Reagans and the Reagans were close cousins, but the Reagan branch of the family just couldn't handle so many letters. Well, Don would have his revenge, though. The President eventually discovered that the Reagans had historically been professionals and educators, and the Reagans only common laborers using the surname Reagan with an A. But for as much as he loved his Irish humor, President Reagan took his heritage very seriously. He took his Irish descent to heart, and when Ireland went through turbulent times during his terms in office, President Reagan yearned for peace and stability in his ancestral homeland. In the Irish-American bond, Reagan saw a microcosm of what makes America strong, and the commitment of many Irish-Americans to public service. I recall on St. Patrick's Day in 1982, at a luncheon honoring the teacher, Charles Haughey. President Reagan said, "So many of our citizens have family trees rooted in the Emerald Isle. This was brought home to me during an unfortunate incident which took place shortly after St. Patrick's Day last year. Outside the Washington Hilton, some shots rang out, and 4 of us were hit. Officer Thomas Delahanty of the D.C. Police Department, Jim Brady, my press secretary, a friend and trusted advisor, and Timothy McCarthy, a member of the Secret Service detail assigned to me, who deliberately placed himself between me and the gunman." Now, it doesn't take a genealogist to figure out the ethnic origin of all of us who were wounded that day. Of course, everyone here probably knows that Tim McCarthy went on to become the special agent in charge of the Chicago Field Office of the Secret Service and is now the police chief in Orland Park, right here in the Chicagoland area. "What united us," Ronald Reagan said during his 1984 trip to Ireland, which was one of the highlights of my life, organizing that trip for him, "is our shared heritage and the common values of our two peoples. So many Irish men and women from every walk of life played a role in creating the dream of America. One was Charles Thompson, Secretary of the Continental Congress, who designed the Great Seal of the United States. From the time of our Revolution, when Irishmen filled the ranks of the Continental Army, to the cultural contributions of individuals like the magnificent tenor John McCormack and the athletic achievements of the great heavyweight boxing champion John L. Sullivan, who we saw featured here earlier this evening. All of them are a part of a great legacy. President Reagan himself belongs on that list of Americans of Irish heritage who have made significant contributions to the nation, I believe. I'm honored to be part of this ceremony, recognizing this great leader and taking part in the legacy as we induct him into the Irish American Hall of Fame. I think I can speak for everyone when I say we know which way Ronald Reagan went, and we are content to follow in his footsteps. Mrs. Reagan regrets very much that she couldn't be here tonight, but she asked me to read a message from her. "Dear friends, I am so pleased to send my best wishes to all of you tonight as you gather at the Irish American Hall of Fame Annual Awards Gala. My husband would have been so honored to be recognized along with these other fine Irish Americans. Ronnie was very proud of his Irish heritage. I remember how moved he was on our 1984 visit to Ballybreen, the Irish village where his great-grandfather was born. He never knew much about his father's side of the family, but on that trip Ronnie was shown a handwritten entry recording the baptism of his great-grandfather in 1829, and he was introduced to distant relatives he never knew he had. He truly felt like he had come home during that trip and declared that there was no place on the planet which he would rather claim as his roots than Ballybreen in County Tipperary. Now, what Irishman wouldn't want to have a pub named after him? And Ronnie was thrilled when the Ballybreen pub was renamed the Reagan Pub during our visit in 1984. We felt right at home in the Ronald Reagan pub that day in Ireland. Ronnie with his pint of Smithwick's and me sipping my Caroline's Irish cream. Ronnie even kept in touch with the O'Farrells, the original owners of the pub, for years after our trip. Unfortunately, Ronnie never got to see that the Reagan pub was brought to the Reagan Presidential Library in 2005. It's actually there in the Air Force One pavilion. We took it apart, it was taken apart in Ballybreen, all the fixtures, the walls and all, and brought over and rebuilt in the Air Force One pavilion at the Reagan Library, and it's open every day. But I could just see him standing there with a pint in his hand and a smile on his face, Mrs. Reagan writes. As many Irish do in March every year, my husband always looked forward to celebrating St. Patrick's Day, perhaps his favorite holiday of the year. In March of 1984, at a White House luncheon in honor of Irish Prime Minister Gareth Fitzgerald, Ronnie said, "Peace and good cheer have never left Irish hearts, and so we look to days of peace and harmony to come, when every day we may say what is said on St. Patrick's Day. Oh Ireland, isn't it grand you look, like a bride in her rich adorning, and with all the pent-up love of my heart, I bid you top of the morning. From the bottom of my heart, I thank you for honoring my husband. I hope you all enjoyed the evening. Sincerely, Nancy Reagan." Thank you again for having me here tonight. It's been very important to me to be able to represent the Reagan family in this way. And thank you for honoring President Reagan as one of the newest members of the Irish American Hall of Fame. Thank you again.